I'm Sarah, and it all started when I met Tom in college. We were in different courses, but we hit it off right away. He was charming, funny, and damn good looking. We dated throughout college, and by the time graduation rolled around, we were head over heels in love. We got hitched right after graduation, and I was on cloud 9. My parents, Ellen and George, were loaded. They'd always given me everything I wanted, and my wedding was no exception. It was a fairy tale affair, white dress, fancy venue, the works. The first year of marriage was bliss. We were young, in love, and had the world at our feet. Tom had landed a great job at a marketing firm, and I was working as a teacher at a local elementary school. Life was good. Then, about a year after we got married, I found out I was pregnant. I was over the moon. His reaction wasn't quite what I expected. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. I brushed off his lukewarm response, chalking it up to shock. I was sure he'd come around once the news sank in. 9 months later, our daughter Lily was born. She was perfect, 10 tiny fingers, 10 tiny toes, and a set of lungs that could wake the dead. I was smitten. Tom, on the other hand, seemed overwhelmed. He'd hold Lily awkwardly, like she was a ticking time bomb. When she cried, which was often, he'd practically run from the room. "I thought we'd have more time, he said one night, after Lily had finally fallen asleep. To enjoy being married, travel, all that stuff." I tried to reassure him. "We can still do all that, Tom. It'll just be a little different with Lily." As the months went by, Tom started staying late at work more and more often. He'd come home after Lily was asleep, citing big projects and demanding clients. I wanted to believe him, but a nagging doubt started to grow in the pit of my stomach. Friday nights became guys' night for Tom. He'd go out with his work buddies, coming home in the wee hours of the morning, reeking of booze. "Keep that kid quiet, will you?" he'd snap when Lily's cries woke him up. "Some of us need to sleep." 3 years flew by in a blur of diapers, tantrums, and stolen moments of joy. Lily was now 3, a bundle of energy with her dad's green eyes and my stubborn chin. I'd gone back to work, and Lily had started kindergarten. We'd fallen into a routine, but it felt like Tom and I were just going through the motions. Then came the day that shattered what was left of our marriage. "I've got a business trip next week," Tom announced over dinner one night. "I'll be gone for 3 days." I nodded, used to his frequent trips by now. The day after Tom left, I got a frantic call from his mother, Martha. "Sarah, I'm at the hospital," she said, her voice shaky. "I had some chest pains. Could you let Tom know?" My heart raced. "Of course, Martha. I'll call him right away." But Tom wasn't answering his phone. After trying for hours, I started to worry. What if something had happened to him too? In desperation, I called his boss, Mike. Business trip. Mike sounded confused. I didn't send Tom on any trip. My world tilted on its axis. If Tom wasn't on a business trip, where the hell was he? When he waltzed through the door 3 days later, whistling like he didn't have a care in the world, I was ready. "How was your trip?" I asked, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "Your mom's in the hospital, and your boss says he never sent you anywhere." The color drained from Tom's face. "Sarah, I can explain." "Save it," I spat. "Just tell me the truth for once. Are you cheating on me?" The silence that followed was all the answer I needed. "Her name's Amanda," Tom finally mumbled. "It's been going on for a while now." The divorce was ugly. Tom fought me on everything: the house, the car, even Lily's teddy bear, but the worst was when he refused to pay child support. "I'm not paying for a kid I never wanted," he snarled during one of our meetings. Something in me snapped. "Fine," I said, my voice cold. "Keep your money. But I want you to sign away your parental rights. You clearly don't want to be a father, so make it official." To my shock, Tom didn't even hesitate. He signed the papers with a flourish, and just like that, he was out of our lives. The next 2 years were tough. Tom's parents, bless them, helped out with Lily and gave us money when they could, but being a single mom was harder than I'd ever imagined. Then, when Lily was 5, I met Jack. He was a widower with a daughter, Emma, who was a year younger than Lily. We bonded over playground meetups and PTA meetings, and before I knew it, I was falling in love again. We got married in a small ceremony, with Lily and Emma as our flower girls. Watching Jack with the girls, I felt hope blooming in my chest for the first time in years. As time passed, our little family grew closer. Lily started calling Jack Dad and Emma called me Mom. It felt right, like we were always meant to be together. 3 years after we got married, our son Max was born. Jack doted on all 3 kids equally, never distinguishing between his and mine. We were happy, really and truly happy. 20 years. Sometimes it feels like yesterday that Lily was a toddler, tottering around our living room. Now, at 25, she's a college graduate, engaged and planning her own wedding. Where did the time go? Lily's fiancé is a great guy. Jack and I both like him. He's kind, hardworking, and he clearly adores our daughter. When they announced their engagement, Jack opened a special account for Lily's wedding expenses and gave her full access. When we told Lily, she burst into tears and hugged us both. For weeks after that, our house was a flurry of wedding magazines, color swatches, and excited phone calls. Lily would burst through the door, bubbling over with news about venues, dresses, and floral arrangements. "Mom, Dad, you won't believe what we found," she'd exclaim, spreading photos across our kitchen table. "Isn't this centerpiece gorgeous?" Jack and I would nod and smile, caught up in her enthusiasm. It warmed my heart to see her so happy, to be part of this exciting time in her life. But then, things started to change. The visits became less frequent, the phone calls shorter. At first I chalked it up to wedding stress. Planning a wedding is no small feat, after all, but as the weeks went by I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Then, on a quiet Sunday afternoon, Lily showed up unannounced. The moment I saw her face, I knew something was wrong. Her usual bright smile was gone, replaced by a tense, almost nervous expression. "Mom, I need to talk to you and..." "Jack," she said, stumbling over the name. My heart dropped. Jack, not Dad. In all the years since Jack had come into our lives, I'd never heard Lily call him anything but Dad. "Of course, sweetheart," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Let me get Jack." I found my husband in the garage tinkering with his latest project. One look at my face and he was on his feet, wiping his hands on a rag. "What's wrong?" he asked, concern etching his features. "It's Lily," I replied. "She wants to talk to us." "And Jack." "She called you Jack." I saw the hurt flash across his face before he schooled his expression into calm neutrality. He nodded, took my hand, and together we walked back into the house. Lily was sitting at the kitchen table, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. Jack and I sat down across from her, our hands still linked under the table. The tension in the room was palpable, thick enough to cut with a knife. "All right, Lily," Jack said, his voice gentle despite the worry I could see in his eyes. "We're here. What did you want to talk about?" Lily took a deep breath, her eyes darting between Jack and me. "I met my biological father a couple of months ago. I was at Grandma Martha's and he showed up. We talked for hours. He's changed, Mom. He wants to make things right." I felt Jack stiffen beside me. "And what does this have to do with the wedding?" he asked, his voice carefully neutral. Lily's chin lifted, a stubborn set to her jaw that I recognized all too well. "He asked to walk me down the aisle, and I want him to." The silence that followed was deafening. I could practically hear the sound of Jack's heart breaking. "Lily," I said gently, "sweetheart, I know this is confusing. But Jack has been your dad since you were 5. Tom, he abandoned you. He signed away his rights." "He made a mistake," Lily's voice rose. "He's sorry now. He wants to fix things." Jack leaned forward, his face a mask of hurt and confusion. "Lily, I've raised you as my own for 20 years. I've been there for every scraped knee, every school play, every heartbreak. I thought I was your dad." "You are," Lily insisted, then faltered. "I mean, you're my stepdad and I love you. But Tom is my real father. It's my wedding, and I want him to walk me down the aisle." I saw the moment Jack's heart shattered. His face crumpled for a split second before he regained control. "Lily," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "I've always considered you my daughter. Not my stepdaughter. My daughter." "Well, I'm not," Lily shouted, jumping to her feet. You're my stepfather, not my real dad. This is my wedding, and I'll decide who walks me down the aisle. The front door slammed and Emma, Jack's biological daughter, rushed into the kitchen. What's going on? Why is everyone yelling? Close behind her was Max, our son, looking bewildered. Mom? Dad? Lily? I quickly filled them in, watching their faces change from confusion to anger. How could you do this to Dad? Emma demanded, glaring at Lily. After everything he's done for you. Max nodded, his young face twisted with hurt. Yeah, Lily. Dad's always treated us all the same. How can you say he's not your real dad? Lily looked around wildly, her eyes filling with tears. You don't understand. None of you understand. With that, she bolted from the house, the door slamming behind her. We all stood there in stunned silence. Jack's face was ashen, his eyes fixed on the spot where Lily had been standing. Emma moved to his side, wrapping an arm around him. Max joined them, and I watched as my family closed ranks around Jack. I moved to Jack's other side, taking his hand. He looked at me, his eyes swimming with unshed tears. I don't understand, he whispered. Where did I go wrong? My heart broke for him. For all of us. You didn't go wrong, Jack, I said firmly. You've been the best father any of these kids could ask for. Lily's, I don't know what's gotten into her. As we stood there, our little family huddled together in the kitchen, I couldn't help but wonder how had things gone so wrong, and more importantly, how were we going to fix this? The days following Lily's bombshell announcement were tense. Jack and I kept expecting her to call, to apologize, to come to her senses. But the call never came. Instead, my phone started buzzing with notifications. Friends and family members sending me links, asking if I'd seen Lily's latest posts. With a heavy heart, I opened her social media page. There they were. Photos of Lily with Tom, both grinning at the camera. So happy to reconnect with my real dad, the caption read. Each word felt like a knife twisting in my gut. When I showed Jack, his face hardened. That's it, he said, his voice low and controlled. If she doesn't consider me her father anymore, I'm not paying for her wedding. I'm blocking her access to the wedding account. She's made her choice. I didn't argue. How could I when he looked so broken? A few days later, the other shoe dropped. Lily burst into our house like a hurricane, her face red with fury. What the hell, she screamed, not even bothering with a greeting. Why can't I access the wedding account? How am I supposed to pay the vendors? The venue? The caterers? I'm sure your real father can help you out, Jack replied, his voice cold in a way I'd never heard before. Since you've chosen him, it seems only right that he should foot the bill. Lily gaped at him, then turned to me. Mom, you can't let him do this. Make him give me access to the account again. I shook my head slowly. Lily, this is Jack's decision. And frankly, I agree with him. What, she shrieked. How can you take his side? I'm your daughter. And Jack is my husband, I replied firmly. He's been more of a father to you than Tom ever was. You can't expect to hurt him like this and still have him pay for your wedding. Lily's face contorted with rage. Fine, she spat. If that's how it's going to be, then you need to make a choice, Mom. It's me or him. Your daughter or your husband. Choose. She stood there, chest heaving, clearly expecting me to cave. To choose her, my flesh and blood, over Jack. But in that moment, looking at her tantrum-throwing face, I didn't recognize my daughter at all. I'm not choosing anyone, Lily, I said quietly. I love you and I love Jack, but I agree with his decision. You're an adult now. If you want Tom to be your real father, then you need to deal with the consequences of that choice. Lily's face crumpled. For a moment, I saw a flicker of the little girl she used to be, the one who would run to Jack with skinned knees and bad dreams. Then her expression hardened again. I hate you, she sobbed. I hate both of you. And with that, she stormed out, slamming the door so hard the windows rattled. A few days after Lily's dramatic exit, my phone buzzed again. Another social media notification. With a sense of dread, I opened it. There was Lily, beaming next to Tom. The caption read, "Thanks to my amazing dad for funding my dream wedding." It's going to be the event of the century. P.S. Sarah, Jack, and kids don't bother showing up. You're not invited. I showed Jack, who just shook his head sadly. Where did Tom suddenly get all this money, he wondered aloud. I shrugged. Who knows, maybe he won the lottery. Either way, it's not our problem anymore. We tried to put it out of our minds to focus on our life and our other kids. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. A week later, there was a knock at our door. I opened it to find Martha and George, Tom's parents, looking worried and frazzled. Sarah, dear Martha said, wringing her hands, we need your help. I ushered them in, calling for Jack. Once we were all settled in the living room, George spoke up. We got a call from the bank, he explained. They're saying we've missed a loan payment. But we never took out a loan. The next day I found myself at the bank with Martha and George, piecing together a disturbing puzzle. Tom, it turned out, had taken out a massive loan using forged documents. He'd made his parents unwitting co-signers. I'm so sorry, the bank manager said, looking genuinely distressed. But unless the loan is repaid, we'll have to start proceedings against Mr. and Mrs. Johnson. Martha burst into tears. George looked shell-shocked. We'll figure this out, I assured them, even as my mind raced. How could Tom do this to his own parents? Back at home, I filled Jack in on everything. He listened, his face growing grimmer by the second. We need to call the police, he said finally. Tom's committed fraud. His parents shouldn't suffer for his crimes. I nodded, my heart heavy. Despite everything, I never wanted it to come to this. The next few days were a whirlwind. Police statements, bank meetings, more tears from Martha and George, and then, finally, the news we'd been dreading and hoping for in equal measure: Tom had been arrested. As the details emerged, the full scope of Tom's deception became clear. He'd taken out the loan not just for Lily's wedding, but to impress a new girlfriend. He'd been living large on borrowed money and forged signatures. The funds have been frozen, the detective informed us. We'll be seizing them as evidence. My thoughts immediately went to Lily. All that money she'd been bragging about, the lavish wedding she'd been planning, it was all gone. Fruits of a poison tree. That evening, as Jack and I sat on the porch, trying to process everything that had happened, my phone rang. It was Lily. Mom, she sobbed, her voice cracking. Everything's ruined. The money's gone. The wedding's off. What am I going to do? I closed my eyes, feeling a complex mix of emotions: sympathy, frustration, a tiny bit of vindication. But mostly I felt tired, so very tired. I don't know, Lily, I said softly. I really don't know. A few days after the phone call, Lily showed up at our doorstep. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her hair disheveled. She looked nothing like the radiant bride-to-be she'd been just weeks ago. Mom, Dad, she said, her voice small. I noticed she was calling Jack Dad again. I need your help. We invited her in, sitting around the kitchen table where we'd had so many family discussions before. Jack's face was a mask of calm, but I could see the turmoil in his eyes. The wedding's off unless we can find the money, Lily explained, her words tumbling out. I know I messed up. I know I hurt you. But please, can you help me? Can you give me the money for the wedding? I glanced at Jack. His jaw was set, but I could see the conflict in his eyes. Part of him wanted to sweep in and fix everything, like he always had. But we both knew we couldn't do that this time. Lily, I said gently, we can't just give you the money. Not after everything that's happened. But Lily started to protest, but Jack cut her off. We can't forgive you that quickly, he said, his voice firm but not unkind. Actions have consequences, Lily. You made your choice, and now you have to deal with the fallout. Lily's face crumpled. You don't understand, she sobbed. Ben is furious. He says I'm unstable, that I create drama. He's threatening to call off the engagement if we can't have the wedding we planned. My heart ached for her. Despite everything, she was still my little girl. I wanted to wrap her in my arms and make everything better, but I knew we couldn't. Sweetheart, I said, reaching out to take her hand. I'm so sorry you're going through this. But this is a problem you created, and it's one you need to solve yourself. "We love you," Jack added, his voice thick with emotion. "But we can't bail you out of this. It wouldn't be right, and it wouldn't help you in the long run." Lily looked between us, realization dawning in her eyes. We weren't going to cave. We weren't going to fix this for her. "Fine," she spat, yanking her hand away from mine. "I'll figure it out myself. I don't need you. Either of you." She stormed out, leaving Jack and me sitting in stunned silence. Weeks passed. We heard through the grapevine that Lily and Ben had gotten married at the city hall, with just a handful of guests present. We weren't invited. The night we heard about the wedding, I found Jack sitting on the porch, staring into the distance. "I feel like I failed her," he said quietly as I sat down next to him. I took his hand, squeezing it gently. "You didn't fail her, Jack. We raised her to be strong, independent, and responsible. Sometimes that means letting her face the consequences of her actions." "But what if we pushed her away for good?" he asked, his voice breaking. I leaned my head on his shoulder. "Every person in life faces situations where they have to make a choice," I said softly. "Sometimes those choices turn out to be wrong. That's what happened with Lily. But she's strong. She'll learn from this, and hopefully she'll find her way back to us." We sat there in silence, watching the sun set. Our family had been through a storm, and I knew we weren't out of the woods yet. But as I sat there with Jack, I felt a glimmer of hope. We'd weathered storms before. We'd weather this one too. 3 months after Lily's hasty City Hall wedding, I bumped into an old friend at the grocery store. As we caught up, she let slip something that made my heart skip a beat. "I heard Lily and Ben are having trouble," she said, lowering her voice. "Someone told me they're talking about divorce." I thanked her, my mind reeling. As soon as I got home, I filled Jack in. We debated for hours before finally deciding to reach out to Lily. To our surprise, she answered on the first ring. "Mom," her voice was small, reminding me of when she was little and had a nightmare. "Sweetheart," we heard. "Is everything okay?" There was a long pause, then a choked sob. "No, Mom. Nothing's okay." Jack and I invited her and Ben over. The next evening they sat across from us at the kitchen table, looking worn and defeated. "We can't stop fighting," Lily admitted, her eyes downcast. "Ben resents me for the wedding fiasco, for alienating all of you. His parents are furious that they weren't at the wedding." Ben nodded, looking miserable. "I love Lily, but I don't know if love is enough anymore." I took a deep breath, choosing my words carefully. "Marriage isn't easy," I started. "God knows Jack and I have had our rough patches. But divorce, that's a big step. Are you sure you've tried everything?" Lily burst into tears. "I'm so sorry," she sobbed. "For everything. Dad, Jack, I'm so sorry for what I said, for how I treated you. Mom, I'm sorry for trying to make you choose. I've ruined everything." Jack reached across the table, taking Lily's hand. "You haven't ruined everything, sweetheart. You made mistakes, yes, but we all do. Have you considered seeing a family therapist?" To our relief, they both nodded. We spent the rest of the evening talking, really talking, for the first time in months. There were more tears, but also laughter, and by the time Lily and Ben left, I felt a glimmer of hope. Over the next few months, Lily and Ben threw themselves into therapy. Jack and I even joined them for a session at the therapist's request. It was hard, dredging up old hurts and misunderstandings, but it was also healing. Slowly but surely we saw changes. Lily and Ben started looking at each other the way they used to. Family dinners became a regular thing again, filled with conversation and laughter instead of tension. One evening, as Jack and I sat on the porch watching the sunset, Lily joined us. She snuggled up next to Jack like she used to when she was little. "Dad," she said softly, "I'm so sorry for everything. You've always been my real dad, and I was an idiot to ever say otherwise." Jack hugged her tight, his eyes misty. "I love you, kiddo. Always have, always will." As for Tom, we heard through Martha and George that he'd received a suspended sentence for the fraud. Last we knew, he'd left town, hopefully to start fresh somewhere else. Life isn't perfect. Lily and Ben still have their struggles and our family is still healing. But as I sit here watching Jack and Lily chatting and laughing, I feel hopeful. We've weathered this storm, and I believe we've come out stronger for it. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know this family isn't about blood or legal documents. It's about love, forgiveness, and sticking together even when things get tough. And by that definition, we are most definitely a family.
Hi, everyone. I'm Nancy. Life was perfect, or so I thought. As a criminal psychology professor at Berkeley, I spent my days teaching students about the dark side of human nature. Ironic, isn't it? I never saw the darkness lurking within my own family until it was almost too late. Professor Anderson, your lecture on digital deception was fascinating. My students often lingered after class. But today my mind was elsewhere. Wedding preparations were in full swing, and my fiancé Victor was on his way to pick me up for venue hunting. Thanks, everyone. Remember, people's true colors often hide behind the prettiest filters. If only I had paid more attention to my own advice. Victor's sleek Tesla pulled up outside the lecture hall. He stepped out, his smile still making my heart skip even after 2 years together. Ready to find our perfect spot, future Mrs. Mitchell? Victor could have afforded any venue with his success as a tech entrepreneur, but we wanted something meaningful. You've hit the jackpot with this one, my sister Lisa gushed as we toured the fourth venue. Her tone dripped with sugary charm. Paul never put this much effort into our wedding, she added with a pointed glance at her husband, who was glued to his phone. The botanical gardens are perfect, I exclaimed. Victor, imagine exchanging vows under that gorgeous arch. Whatever makes you happy, babe, Victor said, squeezing my hand. Lisa's eyes narrowed, though her smile remained intact. Later, at my dress fitting, Lisa insisted on documenting every moment. Your Instagram followers will die over this, she said, snapping photos as I tried on my dream dress. She had volunteered to handle my wedding social media, though I barely used it myself. Isn't this neckline a bit much for a professor? She asked, snapping another picture. I mean, you want your students to focus on your lectures, right? The dress is perfect, Mom defended me. But Lisa wasn't done. Remember my wedding, Mom? My dress was featured in that bridal magazine. She sighed dramatically. Of course, Nancy's will probably get more attention since Victor's family is so connected. At the cake tasting, Lisa kept disappearing with her phone. Just posting updates, she chirped. But through a reflection, I saw her hunched over my purse while Victor and I sampled flavors. Everything okay? Victor whispered, noticing my distraction. She's just excited, I replied, brushing off my unease. Funny how a psychology professor can be so blind when it comes to family. The red flags kept coming. During our engagement photo shoot, Lisa positioned herself as the unofficial second photographer. Let me get some behind-the-scenes content, she said. But she spent more time sneaking glances at my phone than snapping pictures. The final straw came at my bridal shower. Lisa offered to document everything and borrowed my phone to show off my Pinterest board. Through the French doors, I saw her frantically typing, her face lit by my screen. She's really into this wedding, my friend Emma commented. Yeah, I replied, my smile faltering as I watched Lisa's reflection. If only I'd known how into it she truly was. The morning of my wedding dawned bright and beautiful. Sunlight streamed through the resort's penthouse as my makeup artist worked her magic. Everything was perfect, my dream dress, an oceanfront venue, and Victor waiting downstairs. You the most beautiful bride, Lisa gushed, hovering with her phone. Let me capture every moment for your wedding video. My parents beamed from the corner. Both our girls had stunning weddings, Mom said. But this one's definitely more extravagant, Lisa added, her voice tinged with that familiar edge. The ceremony began like a fairy tale. 300 guests filled the oceanfront garden. Victor's eyes glistened as I walked down the aisle. Stop, Lisa's voice shattered the moment. She rushed forward, phone in hand, her face contorted with feigned distress. I'm sorry, but I can't let this happen. The giant screens meant for our wedding video flickered to life. Messages appeared, texts, photos, and timestamps that painted a sordid picture of an affair between Paul and me. Gasps echoed through the crowd. Victor's grip on my hands tightened. Nancy, he whispered, his voice steady. Look at me. Did you do this? No, Victor. I swear I didn't. I believe you. He turned to Lisa, his tone sharp. You've got some explaining to do. Lisa faltered. But the messages, the timestamps. Victor pulled out his phone. Are as fake as your concern. Nancy was in Denver giving a lecture the night of our engagement party. I was there. Want to keep going. The color drained from Lisa's face as her perfect plan unraveled. She hadn't counted on Victor's trust. Doubt about his family's influence on my parents' shame. That's what Lisa had banked on. Instead, she'd given me the greatest wedding gift imaginable. Proof that I was marrying a man who trusted me, knew me, and would stand by my side against anyone, even my own sister. 2 days after my ruined wedding, I sat in Victor's high-tech office, Lisa's laptop in front of me. I had taken it from my parents' house, and now I was about to put my forensics expertise to its most personal use yet. Your sister made one crucial mistake, Victor said, connecting specialized equipment to the laptop. She tried to frame a professor who teaches digital deception. His tech team was already on the case. Within hours, we had our first breakthrough. Look at this, Victor said, leaning closer as data filled the screen. Message Master Pro, premium version. 3 separate purchases, all tied to Lisa's credit card. The first purchase was 8 days after she volunteered to handle your wedding social media. Victor said. She was already plotting. Further digging into the laptop revealed even more damning evidence. Hundreds of practice attempts at fabricating messages, timestamps, and location data. Screenshots painstakingly edited to perfection. She didn't even bother hiding this, I muttered, scrolling through file after file. She never expected us to look, Victor replied grimly. She thought her wedding performance would leave everyone too shocked to question the evidence. The office door burst open. Paul stormed in, waving his phone. I got proof, he said, setting it on the desk. Photos from the Tokyo conference, time-stamped hotel receipts, passport stamps, everything showing I was halfway across the world during those supposed meetings with Nancy. And I was in Denver giving lectures, I added, pulling up videos. Victor attended 3 of them. And we've got dozens of witnesses. My phone buzzed. Marcus, the resort's head of security, had something. Minutes later, we were in the control room, watching security footage. Look at this, Marcus said, pulling up videos from multiple nights. Lisa appeared on screen, sneaking into the business center after hours, testing different phones, taking staged photos, practicing shots. The evidence piled up, fake coffee shop receipts, doctored security footage. And then Victor's tech team cracked an encrypted folder on Lisa's laptop labeled Operation Wedding Crash. Inside was Lisa's detailed playbook, a step-by-step guide to sabotaging my wedding. Family dynamics carefully analyzed, reactions predicted, the timing of her interruption choreographed for maximum impact. This isn't just jealousy, Paul whispered, staring at the files. This is pathological. This is someone who's been planning my downfall since the moment Victor proposed, I said, my voice tight. Victor's phone buzzed. Breaking news. Lisa's throwing a party tomorrow night, he said. Chandler Hotel. She's invited half the city's elite to celebrate saving the family from scandal. She's even planning a full multimedia presentation. I stared at the mountain of evidence on the table, then at Victor. Slowly, a smile crept across my face. The Chandler has state-of-the-art projection systems, doesn't it? The best in the city, Victor confirmed, catching on. Lisa wants to give a presentation, I said, gathering the drives. Let's give her an audience she'll never forget. Paul checked his phone. She just texted me, asking me to testify about how Nancy tricked me. Perfect. I closed Lisa's laptop. She'll get her dramatic moment, just not the one she planned. Tomorrow night, my sister would learn a hard lesson. Never try to frame someone who literally wrote the textbook on exposing digital deception. With the truth loaded, backed up, and ready to deploy, I turned to Victor. Ready to crash Lisa's party? He asked, sliding the final drive into place. More than ready. It's time to teach her that some lessons come with receipts and consequences. The truth was set to blow up her lies, and I couldn't wait for tomorrow. The atmosphere in the ballroom at the Chandler Hotel buzzed with anticipation. Lisa stood at the center, addressing the city's elite with a champagne flute in hand. Tonight, we gathered to discuss a painful but necessary intervention. She began, her voice oozing false sincerity. Sometimes protecting family honor requires difficult choices. Behind her, the massive screens teased blurred snippets of so-called evidence designed to ruin me once and for all. Guests mingled around champagne fountains, oblivious to what was about to unfold. Speaking of choices, I called out, striding in with Victor at my side. Let's discuss some of yours, sister. Lisa froze, her champagne glass halfway to her lips. This is a private event, she snapped, regaining her composure. Perfect, I replied, gesturing to the security guards now sealing the exits. More witnesses. Victor stepped forward, easily accessing the presentation system. The screens flickered, and Lisa's credit card statements appeared for everyone to see. Message Master Pro, premium version. Purchased exactly 8 days after she volunteered to handle my wedding social media. Interesting timing, wouldn't you agree? Victor said, his voice calm but cutting. That's not. Lisa lunged for the controls, but security restrained her as more evidence appeared. The ballroom fell silent as security footage of Lisa's late-night plotting sessions played on the massive screens, followed by her meticulously detailed planning documents. Timestamps revealed Paul was in Tokyo during the supposed rendezvous she fabricated. Oh, and everyone should see this. I advanced the presentation to a document labeled Operation Wedding Crash. The audience gasped as Lisa's step-by-step playbook filled the screens, analyzing family dynamics, predicting reactions, even practicing her devastated expressions in the mirror. "You're manipulating everything," Lisa screamed, her voice cracking as she struggled against security. Like these manipulated messages, Victor countered, displaying edit logs from the app she used to forge conversations. Or these doctored photos? The software's editing history filled the screens, exposing her practice attempts. Paul stood slowly, his face pale but resolute. "I want a divorce, Lisa. This is sick." Our parents, who had been proudly seated at her table moments earlier, now stared at their eldest daughter in horror. "All this," Dad said, his voice trembling, "because your sister was happy." Lisa's polished mask finally shattered. "She gets everything," she shrieked. "The perfect career, the wealthy fiancé, the dream wedding. I just wanted—" Her voice faltered as tears streamed down her face. "To destroy my happiness because you couldn't stand it." I finished coldly. "How's that working out for you?" Lisa lunged at me, mascara streaking down her face, but security intercepted her. Around the room, society friends turned their backs, some discreetly recording her meltdown. Lisa's carefully constructed social world crumbled in real time. 3 weeks later, Victor and I stood beneath the arch at our original venue, an intimate botanical garden overlooking the ocean. This time, our wedding was small, attended only by those who truly mattered. "Think she's watching?" I whispered as Victor and I exchanged vows. "Security spotted her car," he murmured back, "but she can't touch this moment." Lisa's life had collapsed spectacularly. Paul filed for divorce, citing her erratic behavior and criminal deception. Our parents cut all ties, and her once enviable social circle abandoned her. The last I heard, she left town, disgraced and alone. During our first dance, I caught a glimpse of her through the garden gates. This time, her mascara was intact, but her eyes were hollow. Our gazes locked briefly before security escorted her away for good. Victor dipped me dramatically, and I smiled up at him. "Ready to start our real adventure, Professor?" "Already living it," he replied, his eyes warm. Sometimes the sweetest revenge isn't just exposing lies, it's thriving despite them. As I danced in the arms of a man who believed in me when even my own family didn't, I knew I had won. Karma had come with receipts, security footage, and one excellent forensics expert. What would you do if your sibling plotted to destroy your happiness? Would you expose them publicly like I did, or handle it privately? Could you ever forgive them? Let's talk about family betrayal. Where do you draw the line between forgiveness and self-respect? Share your thoughts below. Hi, I'm Angela Mitchell. 5 years ago, life felt like a dream. My husband Jimmy and I had just celebrated our 7th wedding anniversary, and our little girl, Lisa, was the light of our lives. We lived in a cozy house in Boston, and Jimmy's tech consulting business was flourishing. "Babe, come here for a second." Jimmy called me into his home office one evening. I had just put Lisa to bed and walked in to find him grinning. "I set up Lisa's trust fund," he announced. "With the way the business is growing, our princess will never have to worry about college or anything else." "You think of everything," I said, wrapping my arms around him. "Jimmy was always planning ahead, always looking out for us." Back then, his mother, Christine, was a frequent visitor. She adored Lisa. "Oh, my darling grandbaby," she cooed, showering Lisa with gifts. To me, she'd say, "Angela, you're the daughter I never had. I'm so blessed Jimmy found you." But everything changed when Lisa started getting tired all the time. She seemed pale and lethargic. Weeks of tests led to a devastating diagnosis. "Mrs. Mitchell," Dr. Torres said gently, "Lisa has a rare congenital heart condition. She'll need ongoing treatment, but with proper care, she can live a normal life." Jimmy threw himself into research. "Money's no object," he'd say, determined to find the best specialists. "Our baby girl is getting the best care possible." Then, one rainy October night, my world shattered. There was a knock at the door. 2 police officers stood in the downpour. "Ma'am, there's been an accident," one of them said. "Your husband." I couldn't process their words. Jimmy was gone. Christine moved in temporarily to help. At first, it seemed like a blessing. "Angela, darling, let me handle the funeral arrangements," she offered. "You focus on Lisa." But something felt off. She started asking strange questions. "Did Jimmy leave anything specific for Lisa?" she asked one day. "The business must be worth quite a bit now. Have you thought about selling?" I caught her in Jimmy's office late at night, rummaging through his things. "Just organizing," she'd say with a tight smile. But I noticed papers out of place. Then Lisa's condition worsened. One morning, she clutched her chest, her lips turning blue. "Mom, my chest hurts," she whimpered. The emergency room was chaos. Dr. Torres admitted her to the pediatric ICU, warning us her heart was struggling. Christine was always hovering, but her focus wasn't on Lisa. "What about Jimmy's policies?" she asked. "And the trust fund, are you the sole trustee?" That's quite a responsibility for a young widow. Her sharp tone unsettled me. Then I overheard her on the phone. "Yes, I'm calling about accessing the trust fund for my granddaughter," she said. Her voice turned icy. "What do you mean I'm not authorized?" That's when it hit me. Christine wasn't here to help. She was after something else entirely. "Christine, maybe you should take a break," I suggested one day, trying to sound calm. "Don't tell me what to do," she snapped, but then quickly softened. "I'm just worried about Lisa's future." Her eyes, though, told another story. Later, she cornered me in the hospital cafeteria. Her manicured nails tapped impatiently against the table. "Where exactly did Jimmy put the trust fund paperwork?" she demanded. "That's being handled by the lawyers," I replied, keeping my voice steady. "Why are you so concerned about it?" "I'm family. I have a right to know," she hissed before softening her tone again. "I just want to make sure everything's properly managed." That night, I searched through Jimmy's emails and discovered something chilling. Messages from loan sharks. Christine owed hundreds of thousands of dollars in gambling debts. My hands trembled as I read. And then strange things started happening. Lisa's medication pump would suddenly be set to incorrect doses. Her oxygen levels would drop for no apparent reason. One morning, Dr. Torres pulled me aside, her expression grave. "Mrs. Mitchell, our night staff reported someone accessing Lisa's room at 3 a.m. The visitor log wasn't signed." Nurse Linda added, "The security cameras showed your mother-in-law here after visiting hours. She claimed she had permission." A chill ran down my spine. That night, I hid a small camera inside Lisa's favorite stuffed bear, hoping to catch whatever Christine was up to. The very next day, I caught her rummaging through my purse. "Looking for something?" I asked coldly. "Oh, I thought my lipstick might have fallen in," she stammered, her smile faltering. Later, I reviewed the footage. My stomach churned as I watched Christine sneaking into Lisa's room late at night. She examined the machines, whispered into her phone about trust fund access, and muttered, "After the unfortunate passing." Then came the night that still haunts me. I had stepped out to shower and change when the camera feed on my phone began to beep frantically. Christine was in Lisa's room, her hand hovering over the life support machine. "Such a shame," she murmured. "But accidents happen in hospitals all the time. Mommy will need Grandma's help managing all that money." My heart stopped as her hand moved toward the power cord. "Code blue, room 204. Nurse Linda's voice echoed through the halls. She had spotted the flickering machines during her rounds. I ran back, my heart pounding, to find Linda reconnecting the equipment and stabilizing Lisa. "Your daughter's okay," Linda assured me, her face steely. She turned to Christine. "Security is on their way." "I was just checking on her," Christine protested, her voice trembling. These machines are so complicated. Save it, Linda snapped. I saw what you were doing. As security escorted Christine away, she screamed, I'm her grandmother. I have rights. Angel is turning you all against me. I sank into the chair by Lisa's bed, trembling with rage. My mother-in-law had tried to kill her own granddaughter for money, but she didn't know who she was dealing with. Nobody threatens my daughter and gets away with it. The next day, Marcus, the hospital's security officer, showed me weeks of footage. Christine had been tampering with Lisa's equipment, adjusting IV drips, interfering with oxygen levels, and even attempting to access medical records. There's more, Marcus said grimly, pulling up parking lot surveillance. She's been meeting with a man from your husband's old company. That discovery sent me down a rabbit hole. Logging into Jimmy's email account, I found suspicious transfers, hundreds of thousands siphoned into offshore accounts. Christine's signature was all over the paperwork. But the most horrifying revelation came from Jimmy's old phone records. On the night of his accident, he had called Christine in a rage. What have you done with the company money? His last voicemail demanded. Traffic camera footage showed a car resembling Christine's tailing Jimmy's moments before the crash. Police ruled it an accident, Marcus said carefully. But now, with this evidence, it's being reopened. The hospital banned Christine from the premises, and the director assured me, we're fully cooperating with authorities. Christine showed up at my house one evening, tears streaming down her face. Angela, please. There's been a terrible misunderstanding. I only wanted what's best for Lisa. Like you wanted what was best for Jimmy? I replied coldly. Her face went pale. I don't know what you're talking about. Get out, I said quietly, my voice steady. The next time I see you, it'll be when everything you've done comes to light. Her mask finally slipped. You ungrateful, she snarled. After everything I've done for this family, Jimmy would have been nothing without my help managing that company. Managing it right into your gambling accounts, I said, a faint smile tugging at my lips. She froze. Oh yes, Christine. I know all about those too. She fled, but it didn't matter. All the pieces were in place. Christine thought she could get away with murder for money. She was about to learn how wrong she was. The next day, I made some calls. It was time for justice. You won't believe what we found in the company records, Jimmy's former CFO told me. Christine's been cooking the books for years. Several employees have come forward with evidence. The dominoes started to fall. The IRS launched a full investigation into Christine's personal finances and the company. They uncovered millions in unreported gambling winnings, elaborate tax evasion schemes, and fraudulent transfers. Her world crumbled. The company's shareholders filed lawsuits. The hospital pressed charges. The IRS froze her assets, her fancy house, cars, jewelry, everything was seized. 25 years, the judge declared at her sentencing, and full restitution of all stolen funds. Meanwhile, Lisa's health took a remarkable turn for the better. Her heart is showing significant improvement, Dr. Torres said, beaming. The new treatment is working wonderfully. I took over Jimmy's company, determined to honor his legacy. Within 2 years, we doubled our revenue and expanded internationally. Then came the prison visit request. Angela, please. Christine's voice cracked over the phone. I'm so sorry. I was desperate. The gambling debts. I never meet. Save it? I cut her off. You tried to kill my daughter. Your own granddaughter. There's no coming back from that. I'm still family, she pleaded weakly. No, I said firmly. You stopped being family the moment you unplugged my daughter's life support. Enjoy prison. 5 years later, Lisa is a healthy, vibrant 11-year-old. The company is thriving, and we've started a foundation to help families with children facing heart conditions. As for Christine, she spends her days in a maximum security prison, broke, alone, and abandoned by her so-called friends. Her reputation is destroyed. All her schemes amounted to nothing. Sometimes Lisa asks about her grandmother. I tell her the truth. Some people are poisonous, and keeping them out of your life isn't just right, it's necessary. That's the thing about toxic people. They eventually destroy themselves. All you have to do is gather the evidence, stay strong, and let justice take its course. My daughter is alive. We're thriving. And Christine? She's exactly where she deserves to be, forgotten, paying for her crimes until her dying day. What would you do if someone in your family had been secretly plotting against you and your child for years? Would you consider forgiveness, or do you believe some betrayals are truly unforgivable? Share your thoughts below.